where we don't see them as poor kids. Not that you do. We know that that exists, so it goes back to the type of supports that you have in place. We want you to rise, so we have expectations. When the effects of the poverty show up, then we deal with that appropriately. We find the right strategies. With my staff, we've been doing a book study on disrupting poverty, which unpacks the mentality, the paradigm of thinking around poverty, and gives us strategies about how to deal with that, fostering caring relationships, etc., how to have high expectations, how to be accountable. And so we're learning how to do that, and we've been doing that study for about now a year and a half, taking our time to unpack that. And our thing is we do have that support structure in place. It's easy for us to do that in a building that has 278 kids. As opposed to a high school that has 745, that's hard to scale. And you have to deal with that accordingly. I think the educational system itself needs to evolve and look like the 21st century. And that whole entire system has not evolved yet. It's still very antiquated, the way that we look. Now, because of what we're faced with in the 21st century, it shouldn't even look like a school. We have so many issues mental health wise. There are so many things going on. Those should be in-house places that should already be a part of that structure. But that takes money. A lot of money. And that's a different conversation. And so that would be my answer to that. Anyone else want to address that?
I would just say, once again, everything that was stated. I also think we spoke to this a little bit earlier. We're very intentional about exposing our students to things outside of the norm. So, for example, there's a high percentage of my students who have not been out of the city of Cleveland. If they're not exposed to more, how do they know or want to achieve more?
Absolutely.
And so I heard it stated, and we do the same. I often ask myself when I'm looking at my budget, would this be something that would be the norm in a suburban school district? And if it is, then I'm going to fight to make sure it's in my building.
Yes.
And so, for example, we've had students who have been represented at Disney's Youth Education Series, where they spent a few days, 5 days at Disney World learning from some of the top leaders in the company about building their personal brand and leadership strategies in the 21st century, things of that sort. That's something that you would see in the suburbs, and we need to bring it to our cities. The trips, I heard principal over here speak about, taking students out of the country. These are the things they need to see. I remember taking my students who are interested in fashion to Fashion Week in New York City once, and it was the first time about 95% of them had ever been on a plane.
Yes.
They didn't even have that experience. And so that's one way, that exposure piece is one way that we really change, their outlook and how they feel about life, because they see so much, then they want it.
Well, first of all, I want to commend the panel there, because you kind of had all answers and questions thrown at you. And mine is to commend you, your educators, and the young people that you see. You are preparing them for the next fireman, the police chief, the mayors of the city. And it doesn't always work that smooth all the time, but that is, I believe, your intent.
Yes.
And when you spoke about the love, you were the first speaker, and you talked about the love in the school, not just with the children, but the teachers. And it sounded to me like it's a family, just like almost a family affair. And my head is going, and I know that we are crying out for the kids, that we want them to learn, we want them to be at the top of the class. But it just doesn't always happen. You can take a single parent. And it was a time everyone beat up on that single mother like she had just did something wrong. And now as we hear some of the most successful people, they were raised by a single parent. And when you ask for questions, we have to be supportive of you as well. That you go through a lot of things that maybe that single parent went through, or maybe just a broken home. So my thing, and it wasn't to ask you a question, but it was to commend you for coming here today and to explain and to tell us what you're doing and what you're trying to do to help the children. And I think we all have to continue to do that and just be positive. I spoke to a young man going out because when he said, stay in Youngstown, you know, go to early college if you're not gonna go away. And I say it all the time, if you leave the city, you're not gonna have tax dollars. And there are a whole lot of other things you're not gonna see. And you're saying it was 66,000.
Yeah.
I think in 1970, 80, it was a lot
Yes,
more
ma'am.
than that. And there was a time, and I read in the paper, it was like 100 and some thousand.
Yes, ma'am.
Right? So, you know, if you encourage them to learn, it's not just gonna happen overnight. And some of you, I'm sure your parents didn't think you were that perfect little kid when you grew up.
I know I was.
But that was mine, it wasn't a question for you. I just really enjoyed it. I really, truly has enjoyed it and the answers that you've given.
Thank you.
Okay, I want to thank everyone for their questions. We're running out of time. I wanted to make a distinction because I was asked a question a few minutes ago, you know, where is everybody? Well, the only thing I can say is what I always say. This is not an Olympiad. For the last 8 years, my wife and I have done Beeghly Center, and so we average between 2,000 and 3,000 family members and kids on a Sunday afternoon at 4 o'clock. No food, no entertainment, no music. We don't make arrangements for parking. They have to do all that on their own, and they have to fill out a 5-page application just to get a medallion around their neck. So, I mean, that team is in the room. So what this was about is 2 things, so you can walk away and take this away. One, the people in the room are influencers. You have to multiply those persons who can influence the environment with answers from experts who are achieving what it is we say we want our schools to achieve. So the idea was simply to deconstruct success where they're having their own problems in order to be able to go back to the floor and look at an F school, all F school, and say, okay, here's a video, why don't you watch this, and why don't you call Principal Smith, why don't you call Principal Jones, why don't you call Mr. Gibbs if you need support, why don't you call Mr. Wright, and you can get all these things done. We don't have to be the experts in doing it. We've already proven over 8 years that we have amazing individual children achieving. So one of those things, without telling anyone we were doing it, when people look at the grade point averages of some of these kids for gold, silver, and bronze, they assumed that we were using a cumulative grade point average. To get a gold, you had to have simply all A's in all subjects, not a cumulative A, which is different. To get a silver, you had to have all A's and all B's in all subjects. And the only way you could get a bronze, you had to have all A's, all B's in only 2 C's. Now that was our way of increasing the requirements that they were going to have to meet if they were going to then turn around and take the ACT and SAT and hope that they would be better prepared if the rigor within those grade point averages met that particular situation. So I want to thank the panelists for being able to be here because I worked with Ed Trust for many years in San Diego in the pre-K-12. So that's what we're really looking at, is really pre-K-12. From the time they get before they get in the pre-kindergarten, and on up, if they're not being prepared, we used to take kids from schools to San Diego State University and the USD, all the 4th graders, it's I'm going to college groups. So each school had an I'm going to college group, and every year, starting in the 4th grade, every year they took a trip to that college. It's not that they had to be going to college, But that was a whole new experience. When you walk on the campus, you walk around. The little kids, everybody's huge. Everything is big.
Right.
So it changes the perspective. So the key for today was about getting influencers in the room who can hear a different narrative of achievement under 100% poverty, where children are achieving, where teachers are teaching, where all the teachers are not African American and Hispanics, but somehow or other, the teamwork, the camaraderie, the professionalism, they want to be educators and they educate all the children at a high level.